Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for coming today. And thanks to the Hemp Embassy for inviting me up, and it's a pleasure to communicate fungi knowledge. I think I'd like to begin probably by acknowledging the custodians of the land here. Unfortunately, I don't know the particular group. It's Bundjalung country. Okay, right. I'd also like to acknowledge the custodians of fungi knowledge, those people who have been brave enough and courageous enough to go out, through the millennia and sample the plants and come to understand their dietary values or their medicinal values, and even their environmental values. I think, there's a lot of knowledge that was passed down about fungal networks through the environment that we're really only discovering now, with all these amazing mycologists who are doing this great work in the forests in Australia and the Pacific Northwest. I'd like to acknowledge elders past, present and emerging, and just acknowledge the land that we're all meeting on today. Okay, yes, so I'm a mycologist. My background is fungi. I just love mushrooms. They're just these incredible organisms that exist in the forest, and they have this mystery and this archetypal aspect to them. They're hidden. We don't really notice them. And particularly the mycelium, we never see it. It's there, it's operating in the ground, it's doing its magic, it's digesting all the plant matter that surrounds us. They're these incredible beings with this chemical knowledge to break down really complex plant materials. Fungi are the only organisms that can break down lignin. Lignin is the really tough kind of hydrocarbon compound that gives trees their strength. It gives them the trees the ability to grow really tall and do their thing. Like eucalyptus, for example, is like the tallest flowering tree in the world, and it's so tough. You go into the forest and you see these trees lying on the ground, and they've probably been there for hundreds of years because it takes so long to fungi to break down these really complex compounds. So, yeah. So today I'm going to teach how to grow fungi. We can use this for culinary fungi, but we can also use it for other medicinal fungi. I do actually have some medicinal fungi with me today, and I am going to use them to demonstrate. They're probably not the ones you're thinking of, but anyway, we'll get there. So this is going to be a little hands-on. I don't have enough stuff for everybody, so it'll be a bit of a limited numbers thing. And to be fair, I also normally have slides, so hopefully you all have a bit of pen and paper, or feel free to just, make notes on your phone. I'm cool with that. So, cultivating fungi. How many people here have actually had a go? You have? I know you have. Anybody else? Yeah. How much success have you had? Have you grown mold successfully? Yeah. So hopefully I can give you a little bit of knowledge today to help you work around that. Can I ask how you tried growing?
When you buy the oyster mushrooms or whatever, chop up some and put it in like the coffee grinds or something and let the mycelium grow, and then you only buy it once and then you keep eating it.
Yeah, okay. Did that work for you?
Yeah.
It did, excellent.
Yeah.
Coffee grounds is usually really challenging because it goes funky. I have nothing but problems with coffee grounds.
Some have grown moldy, but some have worked.
Well done.
And
nice.
I've also grown from kits a lot of stuff that was very easy.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Inoculating in boiled white rice.
Yep. Cool. Can I ask you a favour? Can you get me some cardboard? Is there a cardboard box out there somewhere? Or
Does it have to be clean?
no? It's really only going to be for demonstration.
I've got it.
Okay. Cool. Sorry, because I'm in a backpack too, I'm a little bit limited with gear I can carry. So. Who else? Who else has had a go at fungi growing mushrooms? Yeah? Success?
Yeah, a success. A lot of trichoderma.
Yeah, okay. Cool. Alright. So there's a number of ways you can grow mushrooms. You can buy a kit. Usually that's pretty much how most people start with growing mushrooms. You get a kit. It usually comes in a cardboard box. It comes in a form like this. And it's pretty much, it's cut and misting. So you cut the bag open, you mist it, and your mushrooms will grow from these. So this is like an oyster mushroom kit. The next way to go is to, you can buy spawn, for example. So I work for Milkwood Permaculture, and part of what we teach is in how you can buy spawn from groups like Little Acre Mushrooms or Aussie Mushroom Supplies, and you go through the process of learning how to pasteurize your substrate and then to fruit from buckets, which is kind of similar to a kit, but you get to really make the most out of your spawn for this stuff. And I'm probably aware I'm using a little language that is maybe foreign to some of you. So when I say words like substrate, substrate is the food that the fungi grow through. So your substrate can be anything from cardboard. A really great way to start growing mushrooms is to grow them on cardboard to begin with, like the oyster mushroom method, which I'll demonstrate for you in a moment. But substrates can also be sugarcane mulch, cocoa coir, coffee grounds is another example. You can kitty litter. I know there's people who grow mushrooms on kitty litter. With your
used or new kitty litter?
New kitty litter. That's an important point.
No, I just thought if you have a cat, you might think, oh, rather than waste it, I'll reuse it. So
I think that's a really interesting experiment, but I think because it's meat, it's probably, you don't want to go there. Yeah, and the uric acids and stuff like that. Yeah. Another method is to also now this is probably for your more interesting mushrooms, is you can grow them on brown rice flour mixed with a little bit of vermiculite. I don't have the vermiculite today, so we're going to have to kind of pretend. I was hoping to find some, but I didn't. I flew in last night, so I wasn't really able to find any. So we'll just pretend. Do you all know what vermiculite is? No? Okay. Vermiculite is an expanded form of a mineral called mica. It's heat treated and it puffs up, and it's essentially neutral. There's no nutrients in it. Fungi don't grow through it or use it for any of its nutrients. It acts as a way to just bulk out your rice flour and create a bit of space, a bit of airspace within that, so that the mycelium can run through it.
So it won't work without it? Don't work without it?
You can try it. Yeah, you could probably use other things as well. Perlite's probably another one, if people know perlite. Yeah. So that's substrate. So substrate is the food. So when I say substrate, it's where the fungi get their nutrients, and it's what they live in. So fungi exist as hyphal threads, is how we refer to them. They're very, very tiny thread-like cells that push through the substrate, through their food. Fungi live within their food. They exude enzymes that then help to break down that food, and then that's how they get their nutrients and their vitamins. So as part of mushroom cultivating, we want to be able to create a really nice, dense food. But we also want to use substrates that are going to be a bit more specific for the fungi. And this is where things like cardboard are really good. What else? Yeah, well, cardboard's good for oyster mushrooms, but not so much for some of the medicinal ones. Toilet roll, yeah, that is. You can use toilet rolls as well. Yeah, the toilet roll tech, it's great.
Not when there's a pandemic though.
No.
So what about logs? I've seen people creating like camper logs.
Yeah, totally. People grow shiitake mushrooms in logs. Yeah, that's a more advanced technique. I'm not teaching that today.
This is the beginner's class.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So, can I have that kettle
All right.
and hot water, please?
Okay, so I'm putting the kettle on and coming back.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
Thank you.
Come on, buddy.
So that's substrate, spawn. I mentioned words like spawn. Spawn is kind of a little bit more of an advanced method, but I would have loved to have been able to get to this point today to show you how easy it is to actually make your own spawn. But we can try and get there. But spawn, when you hear the word, all it means is a really dense, nutrient rich substrate which the mycelium is growing through. So this spawn it looks like rye grains. So rye grains that you get, for example, from your organic food store, you can pressure cook them and inject liquid culture or spores into them, and then grow your mycelium through. This is really the most effective way to grow mushrooms, but it's probably a little bit beyond today's workshop, unfortunately. Okay. We don't have a stand, do we? A microphone stand. Ah. That will work. Okay, yep, this is great. So mushrooms. A mushroom is just the fruiting body of the mycelium. The mycelium and all this white stuff in this bag is mycelium. It's quite thick at this point. It's really, really quite dense. And if you're out in the forest and you disturb some leaf litter, you'll quite often see the mycelial threads growing through the leaves or under the sticks. In some cases you can even see it in wood that you might find within the forest. I might pass this around just so you can all have a look. Feel free to kind of break it up a little bit. But the mycelium is the living organism. So we want to try to cultivate the mycelium. That's the important part of the fungus that we want. The mushroom is the fruit. It's the sexual part of the mycelium. The mycelium gets to a point where it realizes it's running out of nutrients, it's running out of vitamins. There's no more space for it to grow. It's completely colonized its substrate. It's at that point that it starts to develop microscopic tiny mushrooms, what we refer to as primordia, and then in time they grow, and then it'll pop out a mushroom. The mushroom will expand, and then the mushroom will eventually open and will start to distribute spores. So, a little bit of fungi taxonomy. We have the cap. So this is the bit at the top. And this essentially protects what's inside the mushroom, which are the gills. And it's from the gills that the spores are ejected. And then it's all held up by a stem. So I'm going to hand around some mushrooms as well so you can all have a look. so I've cut the mushroom a different way so we can see where the gills are. So the gills are these really long, thin, plate-like structures that sit underneath the cap. And it's here where the spores develop and are ejected. One of the basic techniques that is quite often talked about is the PF technique, which is all based around using spore prints. So if we want to collect a spore print, we would cut the mushroom something like this. We would normally probably just pull off the stem and remove that protective white layer. I think the mushroom that's going around has a protective white layer called an annulus. We would remove that. And then you place the mushroom on a surface like that and put a cup on top, and you would just let the spores drop and collect on that surface.
So no force applied, just let it naturally do its thing. No force applied, no tapping, just let it naturally drop.
No. Well, it's an interesting thing, and spores are not actually, don't drop from the mushroom. Spores are ejected from the mushroom. There's this myth that gets around of, pick and tap. It doesn't work. There's a really complex mechanism called ballistospory that happens where the spores collect moisture. It changes the weight of the spores, and the spores are then flung off like a catapult. And they're shot out into the environment where they're then caught by a breeze and distributed.
Like you said, it's a misconception, but it's almost like when it drops, and it's not in fact, it's based on the moisture content that it requires.
Yeah, and that's why mushrooms need humidity. They need that moisture in the air to be able to then form on the spores to be ejected. Oh, no, that's fine. I can hold it now. Okay. No, I wouldn't do that to you.
Thank you.
Okay. I went looking for some oyster mushrooms because I wanted to show you how we can use the cardboard method. I have a pot. There it is. Sorry, I'm not being very permaculture today. I'm using lots of disposable plastics. So there's two kinds of fungi really. There's primary and secondary decomposers. Primary decomposers are fungi like oyster mushrooms or shiitake, ganoderma, lion's mane. Species like that. And then the other type of primary decomposers, and they're fungi that break down plant matter that's already been partially decomposed. So fungi that grow from cow dung, for example, are secondary decomposers. They don't have the enzymes necessary to be able to break down the really tough lignin. So this method I'm going to show now is more for the wood-loving species, your primary decomposers. So I don't know how many of you go out foraging for Psilocybe aeruginosa. I mean, have you had any sick tests, or you don't have to admit? Anybody else looking for subs? Yeah, always. I'm yet to find my first Northern New South Wales subs, so anyway, maybe one day. But if you're out collecting those types, this is a perfect Yeah, okay, I know they grow at Colts, yeah. I do intend on going to Colts at some point. Yeah, that would be excellent. Yeah, cool. No, a little bit more would be good. Can I have all 4? Oh, thank you. Try to remove any plastics, sticky tape. It wouldn't be a problem, but it's best to remove rubbish. Break up the cardboard a little bit. Where did those mushrooms get to? Oh, you ate them, okay. If you get high, it's not my fault.
Kind of is.
All you need is just, some broken up cardboard, and I just realised something rather silly. This is hot water.
I've got cold water if you want.
Use the knife handle.
Use your knife.
Yeah, I'm going to need to use some of that water, I think. So, yeah, I've used hot water here. It is a scalding risk. And you would let that sit in the hot water for... This is where milk thermometers are really helpful. These are one of the most useful things I have found within my own kind of mycology experience. And just let the cardboard sit in hot water that's between 60 to 80 degrees for about an hour. And that will pasteurize the cardboard. One of the beautiful things about cardboard though is that not a lot of things can derive nutrient from it. It's really only fungi that can derive the nutrients, that can break down the lignin and the cellulose that's in there. You may have other fungi that will jump in. Trichoderma, for example, does also love cardboard. But by soaking it in the hot water for an hour, between 60 to 80 degrees, you're killing any other organism that's going to be there. You'll get some fungi that survive, you'll get thermophilic, not fungi, organisms, you'll get thermophilic organisms that will survive that process, but they're beneficial, they can help you, because they are protective in a way that they can keep other organisms from flourishing. The fungi don't mind them. So I need to pour this water off. Anyway,
I can pour it off.
yeah. Yeah, I should have done that. Like I said, I didn't get in till like, I don't know, 10 o'clock last night, so...
Fantastic piece like you, reports. Fantastic piece like you.
So I'm just using some cold water to cool this down. And then we want to squeeze the water out. We want to get this cardboard to what we refer to as field capacity, where there's still moisture in the cardboard, but it's not dripping. If you have too much moisture, that just creates an environment for bacteria to grow. Bacteria is not your friend. And I know in some cases, some of the glues that they use on these cardboards, bacteria seem to really like them. There must be something in them, there's like a sugar or something that allows them to really grow well. So So we squeeze the water out, we get the cardboard to field capacity, there's no more water dripping off this. And then all we need to do is we can start breaking up the cardboard and we start to layer it in a plastic container. We're pretending that these are oyster mushrooms in this case. It won't work with button mushrooms, with Agaricus bisporus, but if you use oyster mushrooms, it's not a problem. You just go to your supermarket, buy a packet of oyster mushrooms, and then all you have to do is just break them up like that. And you can spread part of the mushroom through the cardboard like that, and then keep layering it.
It'll work with dried mushrooms?
It won't work with dried mushrooms, no. You can try this with other species, so like I said, oyster mushrooms, it's great. I haven't had luck with shiitake doing this, but I have had luck with turkey tail and Ganoderma. It seems to work okay. And of course, in theory, you can grow Psilocybe aeruginosa using this method as well. And you just keep layering like that. Break it up, spread it through. One of the really amazing things about mushrooms is that the mushroom cap is composed of mycelium. This is just specialized mycelium. So when you break it up and you add it to a substrate, the mycelium that's there kind of realizes like, oh, I'm not part of a mushroom anymore, I'm back in the environment, and it goes from being specialized mycelium to generalized mycelium, and will start to explore its environment again. So doing this, after about a week, you'll start to see the mycelium spreading through the cardboard. Within 2 weeks, it should be fully myceliated.
Is that a word? Is that a word? Myceliated?
It is a word. It's a legit word. Well, the proper term that's used in a lot of literature is colonized.
Yeah, I know that word.
Yeah, okay. So the cardboard will become fully colonized. We have this problem in mycology where all the language we use to describe fungi come from other animals or other fields of science. And so we want to try to reclaim our own language in mycology. You know, like for example, we refer to the sexual part of the mushroom as gills. Gills are from fish. Like, what? No. We would normally refer to them as lamellae, but most people, it's another word. So we want to try to reclaim our language. So instead of using colonized, it's got a bit of a dirty slur to it. Let's use myceliation instead. So it's the process of the mycelium growing through and colonizing the substrate. Someone had a...
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting too, because the Latin that we use as descriptive words also come from like older descriptions, but that's what we use in mycology essentially to describe a mushroom as like old words that mean something to help with the description.
Yeah, totally. I know there's a lot of people who are starting to go through a lot of those older descriptions and try to modernize them, you know, because the language that's used is old. It's an old language. It comes from something we're no longer really familiar with. So people are trying to reword fungi descriptions or trying to reword the language around mushrooms so that it's contemporary. Peter McCoy, for example, who wrote Radical Mycology, is the person who came up with the myceliation term. So if you're interested in learning how to grow mushrooms, it's a book I highly recommend. It's about $100, but it's worth its weight. It's awesome. And it covers cultivation, the biology, the language, medicinal aspects. It talks about lichens and the whole range. It's a really useful book. But this is the cardboard method. It's one of the easiest kind of basic methods. I love to teach it because it gives people the confidence to then be able to go on to more advanced techniques. Yeah, I've had a lot of successes using this. And it's great to then get people sending photos going, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing, and then all of a sudden one day I noticed that there was all these mushrooms growing out of the box, and there's this sense of excitement of like, oh my god, I grew my own mushrooms. This is cool. You know, and you did it kind of guerrilla style too. You snuck into a supermarket and you're borrowing the mycelium. I don't know. You know, you get this whole language around, you know, protecting plants and things and stuff, and it's just like, I know people have talked about it with fungi.
So, from this process that you're doing here, one thing I would have taken from logic is that the spores themselves from the gill, so I would have thought, logically, that when you place the mushroom in there, that by increasing the humidity of the area allows for the spores to then take on humidity, which allows for it to burst, which therefore deposits and colonizes.
There's an interesting point there, is that there are enzymes that are exuded by the mycelium that inhibit spore germination.
Wow.
So, yeah. So spores that, spores that kind of land near the mycelium are likely not to germinate. You know, but I mean, hey, you know, we live in this incredibly dry environment in Australia where that substrate is possibly going to dry out. Some mycelium can survive that dehydration process and come back. But if they don't, the spores are there in the environment. Those compounds that inhibit the spore germination degrade fairly quickly, and then that allows the germination in that case for the recolonisation of that substrate.
And once again, for relatability, where you said the cap acts as its own form, it is its own form of mycelium, but it's not a general mycelium, but it almost acts for relatability like a stem cell that then transfers back to that.
Yeah, totally. Which is great. You've just brought up a really key point there, which is, what kind of cultivation do you want to do? Do you want to try to grow from spores? Growing from spores can be really, really tricky. Whereas growing from tissue culture, which is kind of what this is, it's a basic form of tissue culture, or stem cells, is pretty much the easiest way to grow fungi. Where'd that bag go? Bring it back, Liam.
He doesn't play with it.
It's almost comparable to cloning method and asexual versus a sexual. So the fruit spores would be a sexual form, which, as we all know, growing from seed can be tricky.
Yep.
Whereas growing from
That's what this is. It's cloning. It's essentially cloning. It's like it's taking a cutting. You go out and you take a cutting from your favourite plant, you put it in some soil and it grows roots. And you can grow a whole new plant. It's the same kind of idea. You're taking a bit of mushroom, you're taking a little bit of a sample out of it, and you're cloning it, you're regrowing it. In this case, the cardboard is the food, it's the substrate that mycelium needs, rather than, say, for a plant, which needs soil to then grow through. And but then plants also have a whole other ecosystem that come along with them. There's numerous bacteria that are helping to break down the soil and also provide nutrients as well. And of course, we can't forget the mycelium that's within that soil. It's just the mycelium within the soil that's actually doing all the work for the plant. So maybe that's a whole other topic. So that's probably the easiest method. Then another method is...
Can I ask you just two rookie questions quickly? You boiled the cardboard, but does the plastic have to be boiled? Or...
This,
yeah.
I wouldn't worry about this. The thing with plastic is it usually comes fairly sterile from its industrial process.
You want it broad right now. You don't want just a clean Tupperware container.
If you can use a Tupperware container, you can use one of those like glass containers, that's fine, but I would clean it in that case. I would probably get a little bit of methylated spirits and water and just, you know, clean it up.
And then just one other rookie question, because I've been running around and missed these things. Is it possible to take a mushroom from, like, you know, the wolves or coals, you know, or is the cold killed it?
No, the cold doesn't kill it.
Okay, so I can break up something from...
No, that's what I'm saying, is go to Coles, go to... Oh,
Yeah, alright.
maybe we don't want to...
But you know what I'm saying.
Go to your local organic store and buy some nice organic oyster mushrooms.
Go to the co-op at Nimbin.
Yes. I think I went there though, I couldn't find any oyster mushrooms. Anyway. Is there a Coles here? No, I didn't think so. Okay. Okay, bring on the question.
That's finished.
Ah, so that's it.
That's it.
That's it. All you do is you put the lid on.
Where do you keep it then?
That's it.
In the kitchen.
Oh, where do you keep it?
Yeah.
Keep it in... Yeah, keep it in the kitchen.
Does it have to be out of direct
Doesn't have to
sunlight?
be... Yeah, keep it out of direct sunlight.
Yeah, it's a cool dark place or something like that.
A cool dark place is fine. Sitting on the top of your fridge is a pretty good place. Your fridge can be quite warm. It's a really nice kind of warm space.
Top of modems.
Yeah. Okay. Be creative. Totally. I'm all about the guerrilla mycology. You know, go out, be creative, find, just do it. Be creative with your mushroom cultivation. But that's all you need to do.
Temperature is important. Temperature is not so important.
Room temperature.
Yeah.
Mycelium loves the same temperature that we love.
Okay.
So if you're warm, the mycelium will be happy. You know, like in your space. So 24 degrees is ideal. Less than 35 degrees. At about 35 degrees up, its mycelium really struggles, and that's also helps promote bacteria and trichoderma. Trichoderma loves 30 degrees plus, and if it's there, it will take over beyond those kind of temperatures. It condensates and waters itself. So you don't. That's what I meant by field capacity. There's enough water in the cardboard. That's all it's going to need for that time period. And it's not dripping, so it's not going to then promote other things, the bacteria and stuff that you don't want in there. The mycelium will grow through that. When it gets to the point where it realizes it's run out of nutrients, it doesn't have anywhere else to grow, that little trigger will happen and it will start to form its own mushrooms. It'll form the primordia that grow and turn into mushrooms, and quite often the mushrooms will just develop and then pop off the cap. Yeah. But if you notice that it's fully myceliated, you can just take the cap off the top of take off the lid like that, leave it like that, and that air will also trigger the mushroom formation. So, and then they'll grow. You could potentially like let it sit like that, but you're going to want a fruiting environment at some point, and this is where like perlite or even a larger container with a little bit of perlite and some holes in the side of the container are helpful. You can take the lid off. The humidity in that container will then help the mushrooms to grow. This is where slides are really helpful in this case. So actually, I guess I do have slides, so I can probably put them up just to illustrate what I mean.
How many times will that fruit? How many times will that give fruit?
Will it fruit? Yeah, probably about twice. You won't get a huge amount of mushrooms off that, but yeah, you'll get a couple of flushes. You'll probably get 2 meals out of it, I would think.
Would that largely be because of the small amount of hydrocarbons that have to secrete off in there?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Would that essentially work if you just did that same method you've done there with large pieces of cardboard, like large scale, and stacked them and put the mushrooms down between them and maybe a towel or something? Like, that would,
Yeah, can you upscale? Can you upscale that method?
yeah, just wrap it with plastic, like instead of
You can totally upscale this method, and you could use, for example, like there's a whole pile of wood chips over there. You could ferment those wood chips. You can soak the wood chips in some water for 2 weeks. That will kill all the other organisms in those wood chips. And then, like, yeah, if you're growing the funky fungi that you really want and you want to upscale this method, that's what you'd do. You would ferment your wood chips. You would take, where is that container? You would take this, break it up and then spread it through those wood chips. And the same thing, the mycelium will just spread through in the same kind of process. Oh, you could use hot water if you want. Yeah, you could collect the heat and pasteurize it in exactly the same way. Just let it sit in some hot water for between 60 to 80 degrees for about an hour. Yeah. Although you might want to leave it for 2 hours, depending on how thick the wood chips are.
How do you ferment the wood chips?
How do you ferment the wood chips? You just use a big plastic tub. You just have the chips in the tub, cover it with water, and let it sit for about a week to 2 weeks. You'll be able to tell when it's ready because it'll have a smell. It's a particular smell. It's not very pleasant.
Can I also suggest that hemp chips made from the hemp plants makes perfect medium, and it just needs to be boiled in the boiler in the big cocktail for 80 degrees. It makes perfect medium of any company. And Caine from all chips is that. That's the best. Go ahead.
Sorry. How are you going there? Are you okay? Okay, cool. So I'm just finding some, yeah, go ahead, ask questions. So the dyes are all soy based. They're no longer heavy metal based. So all the inks that are on the cardboard are perfectly fine. Because it's soy, it's organic in its origin, and that includes a lot of the coloured inks now are all soy based. They're cheap, and that's why we have coloured newspapers nowadays. Because it's all soy based. It's no longer heavy metal based, which was really expensive. I don't know how many of you can see that, but that's essentially one of those plastic storage containers. It's got a layer of perlite in the bottom of the container, and what I've done is I've drilled a whole heap of holes through in the sides of the container. The perlite will soak up water, and because of the large surface area that the perlite provides, there's a lot of evaporation going on, which creates a lot of humidity. Fungi need around about 70% humidity upwards, 70 to 90% humidity ideally, for the mushrooms to be able to grow. If it's less than 70%, the mushrooms will start to dry out and this won't happen. But something like this is fairly cheap, it's easy to make, and it works a treat. It's really good.
That moisture content, sorry, is that like for the soil line and also for the relative humidity in the air?
Sorry, can you start that question again?
That's roughly 70%. Would that 70% apply to the soil line as well as the relative humidity of the air?
Just repeat.
Yeah, the soil line. You mean like, so when a fungus grows in nature, yeah, so the humidity close to the ground is getting up to about 70% ideally. So like, you know, and that's why you go looking for particular fungi after heavy rain, you know, because you've got the heat, you've got the moisture, you've got the evaporation going on. And yeah, you'll find them growing out of those really moist cowpats, for example, or, you know, like, or in a rainforest, you'll in those really moist, wet gullies, for example, is where you find some of the interesting Ganodermas. But yeah, so that's the shotgun fruiting chamber.
And then do you mix from that tub your mycelium into it?
Oh no, you would have it sitting inside the container. You don't mix this through. No, you just sit it within the container, just so that it's also an environment that has the humidity. You can get really technical and start to develop really sophisticated fruiting chambers, but this is a great way to begin.
So what happened with the mycelium after the second blossom fruit? Why does it
In a lot of ways, I mean, it's not true 100%, but you know, like after it's fruited a couple of times, you can still break up that mycelium and add it to new substrate. You can add it to new cardboard. Mycelium is weirdly infinite in its lifespan, really. I mean, after a while it will start to age and grow old and not produce as well, but you can fruit off it, you can break it up, you can spread it through a new substrate. It will keep growing for ages and ages.
You always put after a couple of blossoms, you just need more substrate.
Yeah, just add it to more cardboard.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, you know, like sourdough starter. Yeah. So like when you're doing sourdough, you just take a spoon and you add it to some new flour and water, and it just does its thing. You know, you make up your bread, and then you take a little bit of that, and you just keep going on and on and on. Yeah, same idea. Someone else.
From the breakdown of this, does that release CO2?
It does release CO2.
So is that like they have those grow bags for cultivating marijuana and then they like CO2? Did this kind of work that?
Yeah, there are people that are talking about this. How can we take the CO2 from growing mushrooms and feed it into your plant crop that's in the chamber next door? Yeah. No, but I mean, and that's also why, you know, like, so the shotgun fruiting chamber, you have the holes, so the CO2 can also escape. So you've got the airflow, you've got fresh air coming in, and the CO2 is coming out. People do get there. You know, like if you want to get really sophisticated with your mushroom growing, you can get a CO2 monitor as well and do that. Yeah. And in a similar way, I mean, you know, if you want to grow oyster mushrooms, you know, you can come back and go buy your spawn. You can do the same thing. Instead of using the mushroom, you can just mix the spawn through the cardboard and grow it out like that as well. An alternative method. Or through wood chips. So that's the cardboard method. It's one of the easiest, it's the most available ways for you to start growing your own mushrooms. I love it. And it's it can fail. It's not a guaranteed process. But it will give you the confidence to then go on and try more advanced methods.
Quick question. Once I open the spawn bag, do I have to use the whole bag, or can I store it?
Yeah, it's best to use it in one go. So, yeah. I wanted to cover very, very briefly the PF Tech. Because it is pretty much then the next kind of entry-level technique. I had to go and buy this, and it's not fully set up. But the PF Tech is a technique where you can obtain a spore print. It's best to try to obtain a spore print from someone who's maybe growing in an indoor situation. If you get what I mean. And then and you can then I don't have a spore print with me, unfortunately, so but you would have spore print on foil, for example, and then using a syringe you can squirt some distilled water onto the spore print. You can scrape it, and then you can draw the spores up into the syringe. I recommend something like a Lua lock syringe. These are great. I'm going to pass a couple around so you can see what I mean. You can go to a pharmacist and just get the normal kind of syringes for, they sell them now for helping kind of give medication to kids.
Water, distilled water or boiled
Just distilled water or boiled water is fine. So. Oh, I've lost, you gained a different person. Can you pass that around? These are really, really good because they have like a little screw in them, and you can screw the syringe in, which makes the syringe kind of stay in place. Or the needle, sorry, I meant the needle. So when you buy the syringe, you can also purchase some needles. They'll come like this. And you just screw the needle in, like so. So when you're pushing it in or pulling it out of the hole, the whole thing doesn't pull off. I'll use close so it doesn't matter.
So it's like a 14 gauge syringe or something, not necessarily a sharp syringe.
No, I wouldn't use a sharps. No, I mean you can if you want. It's up to you, but yeah, you want to draw. Yeah, those things take ages. No, these are great. This is like, if you're interested, come up later and you can have a look at the gauge of the needle. But it's you can see how big the hole is. You know, but effectively you would just kind of squirt a little bit onto the surface, onto the spore print, rub it. And then you draw the same water back up again, like that. And you draw the spores up into the syringe. You would then, and this is where it would have been really nice to have had some vermiculite.
You put your spore print on tin foil?
Yeah, I use aluminium foil, tin foil. Yeah. But the PF Tech is based around rice. So a lot of the modern kind of cultivation techniques come out of the whole cubensis culture of working out how can we grow magic mushrooms on a substrate. And the chap who was with Gordon Wasson, who was the first American to try magic mushrooms, he had a researcher with him who took spores, went back to his lab in France, and then worked out how to grow magic mushrooms on rice. And that was the technique for quite some time, was using rice grains to grow magic mushrooms. At a certain point, Terence McKenna and Dennis McKenna, I think it was the other way around, it was Dennis McKenna who worked it out, and then he shared it with his brother Terence McKenna, that they could also grow, no, it was through another chap, Caine, but yeah, it was Dennis and Terence who then popularised the method of growing on rye grains, which is also another method. So, you know, and it's pretty much the same as what's in here. These are rye grains, and the mycelium has myceliated these rye grains. And then from that, you can then just have a monotub, and then have that in the container, and then grow the mushrooms like that. You have to pressure cook them. Yeah, you do have to go through that process of pressure cooking. Yeah, so it does get a little bit more advanced, yeah. But in 1989, 1991, a guy named Professor Psilocybes fanaticus came up with technique called the PF tech, which was using brown rice in mason jars. So these kind of jars that are used for making jams or for preserves. And we're simply just having the lid. The lid has a couple of holes banged into it, so like 4 holes for the injection point. And in time, he then also worked out that rather than just using rice, you could use brown rice flour mixed with vermiculite. Unfortunately, I don't have the vermiculite today, but you know, you would fill the jar. My advice is to Google this technique, but I think it's 2 parts vermiculite to 1 part brown rice flour. And then you fill the jar, and then you have another layer of vermiculite sitting on top. You put the lid on, the lid has 4 holes in it. And then all you have to do is to steam that. So you have it like in one of those steamers. Let it sit in there, steam it for a couple of hours, and then let it cool down. You can take your spore syringe that you prepared earlier, and then all you do is just push down through the hole and you inject, say, maybe half a mil or 1 mil of that spore solution in there. Let it germinate. The mycelium will grow through, and then when it's fully myceliated, all it is then is taking that off. And I mean, you would have all felt how solid that is. You know, it becomes one dense mass. And then, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to it'll create a mess, but you can just flip the jar, give it a tap on the bottom, and a cake will drop out. A solid mass. And then you have it in the shotgun fruiting chamber, and within a couple of weeks, the mushrooms will then grow off that. So, and it can be used for a variety of different mushrooms, but it's most commonly used for cubensis. So, it's really easy, it's really accessible. These jars, you can get them in most places. It's the spore print. You just want to make sure you get a really clean spore print, and yeah, you just get really good syringes.
So you just put the cakes straight in the freezing chamber, you don't give them any other substrate?
Sorry,
You don't give them any other substrate, you just put the cakes straight in the freezing chamber?
Yep. Yep. Or, if you want, you can then go to a monotub. What's a monotub? It's essentially your monotub here. It's one of those plastic containers. I've melted holes in the side using tin cans. So heat up a little tin can so it's really hot, and then it just pushes through the plastic. You cover those holes with micropore tape, which I forgot to bring. Sorry. I didn't come very well prepared. Micropore tape is, it's that, I think most of you know what it is. It's brown or white.
Papery.
It's paper, yeah. So, you can get it from a pharmacist. You can get it from a pharmacist. You use it like on sporting wounds and things. It's just like, it's something you might want to protect your skin.
Paper form of plastic.
That's the stuff, yes. It's sticky, so you peel it off and you can just cover the holes with it. Some people use polyfill, and they will just shove polyfill in the hole. Polyfill is the stuff that they have in pillows. Okay, cool. That kettle. Okay. Can we boil that again, or? Yep.
Boil the kettle again?
Yes.
I said it's at 25. He finishes at 2:25.
And then it's the garlic.
Sorry, you get to see all my slides.
Doesn't drop the phone, microphone
Well, that's the inside of a monotub. You know, that's what it would look like at the end of the day.
If you press F11, it'll go into like full screen mode.
Oh, you're a legend. Thank you so much.
Got a new job, IT support.
Yeah. And so that's what the inside of a monotub looks like. But that's the polyfill version of where you just remove some of the plastic from your pillow and shove it through those holes.
Hint, don't use polyfill.
Pardon?
Hint, don't use polyfill.
Yes, I don't use it. Insects can climb through polyfill. They can't climb through micropore tape. So if you've got a problem with fungus gnats in your house, you know, you have a lot of house plants, those fungus gnats will invade your fungus grows. I guarantee it. Okay. Now, running out of time, so I'm going to try to race through this next bit. A technique I wanted to share with you today was the hydrogen peroxide agar tech, which is then that starting point for you to then go on to more advanced techniques. The beauty with the peroxide agar technique is that you're creating a functionally sterile environment where we were talking about tissue culturing earlier. It's a functionally sterile environment where you can take a little bit of mycelium from a mushroom and you can put it on agar and the mycelium will grow across the agar. So, I mean, I assume a lot of you are familiar with the idea of petri dishes. Yep. So it's that same idea. And from there, from growing your agar, your mycelium on a petri dish, you can then go to different levels of cultivation. So you can start to use liquid cultures, which is where you grow mycelium through a liquid substrate. So agar is great, but liquid cultures are amazing, and it forms the foundation of pretty much the entire mushroom industry. You can grow a lot of mycelium very, very quickly through a nutrient-rich liquid. You can then draw that liquid up into syringes and inject it into pressure-cooked bags of grains. And that's how this would have been created, this bag. They would have just pressure-cooked all those grains, they would have taken a liquid culture in a syringe and injected it into the grains and then mushed it up a little bit and allowed that mycelium to grow through the grains. Within a liquid culture, you're talking about hundreds, potentially thousands of inoculation points.
Hot water.
Thank you.
Are you all having a very interesting day?
Can I have another helper? Thank you. Is there another talk after this? There is. Okay. All right. Okay. And we're down to what, 20 minutes? Okay. Okay. I don't know if this is actually going to work. Could you unpack those and lay them out for me? Okay, so to do the agar technique, you need a teaspoon of agar, and this is agar. It comes from a red, what is it, red algae. Woolies.
Like a grocery shop?
Asian groceries. Yeah. I'm adding this to a tiny little bit of cold water because normally I would do this by adding it to 200 mils of cold water, and then I would then heat the water up using like a water bath, for example. But I've discovered a bit of a cheat method where I can dissolve a little bit in a tiny little bit of water and then add boiling water.
Is that because the agar itself, if you add hot water directly to it, deactivates it?
No, the problem is if you add hot water directly to agar is it starts to gel instantly and it goops. Like it just forms like a goopy mass, and it's a pain in the ass to actually, you know, like I've developed a whole method of just like heating the hot water and then very, very gently adding the agar powder to hot water. And then I was just like, why am I doing this to myself?
Just trying to understand why you're adding cold water then hot water.
Yeah, no, if you add it directly to hot water, it activates straight away and just becomes goop.
So is it 1 teaspoon per 200 ml of water?
Yeah, so 1 teaspoon to 200 mils of water. Yeah. I don't know if this is going to work. I've got my fingers crossed. What temperature? You want to try to get it to 90 degrees. Was that? Yeah, that was you. Yeah. My assistant here, can you see the thickness, the viscidity? Yeah, it's quite viscid already. Alright. Okay, and then you want to add some nutrients and vitamins. So for your sugar source, so any kind of brown rice or molasses, malt extract is perfect. People even use honey or even just Nestle Milo. Sorry? Yeah, have you seen one of my talks before? No. Okay. Well guessed.
Will that increase your chance of contamination?
Vegemite?
Yeah.
One of the better recipes is, what is it? MEYA, malt extract and yeast agar. So that's what the Vegemite is. The Vegemite is a yeast extract. And so it's just a really common recipe in labs. Sorry, I'm having difficulty here getting this off.
You just use yeast, like rose yeast?
I have tried. Nah, I didn't really find it. Anyway, so to that 200 mils, for those of you writing this down, I add, I don't know, probably a little bit of like an eighth of a jar. I mean a teaspoon. Not very much.
Would there be a problem if you put more into it? Or?
Not a problem. No. Keep in mind that the more sugar you have, the more risk of contamination. Because sugar is a food source for everything, essentially. You want to find that balance between feeding the mycelium, but also encouraging it to grow. So if there's nutrients there for it to grow, it'll have that energy source, but then it also wants to be able to find more. So if there's a lack, it's going to want to seek out and search more for more nutrients.
What happens if it contaminates?
You just chuck it. it'll just, you'll see it. You'll get like blobs of bacteria growing or other contaminating fungi. Trichoderma. Gee, they make these adult proof now, don't they? And I add a tiny amount of Vegemite. Like that much. Really not a lot at all. And the thing is with Vegemite, you can smell it. Normally I would have this in a large glass jar that's sitting in like a saucepan that I'm using as a water bath. And I'll let it kind of sit at about 90 degrees for about 10 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes. I'll then take it off the heat and let it cool down to about 50 degrees. And this is when I then add the hydrogen peroxide. So hydrogen peroxide makes this functionally sterile.
Is that a 3%?
Yeah, this is the 3% hydrogen peroxide. And I add it at a ratio of about 1%. There's that syringe. So to 200 mils, you add 2 mil. So about that much, if you can see it. And this makes this agar functionally sterile. It means you can use this agar out on a normal kitchen bench. We can do tissue cultures here now, and we've got a good chance of them surviving. Whereas if you don't use the hydrogen peroxide, they will go funky within days. You'll get, like, because we're surrounded by spores. We're breathing in spores as we speak here today. But those spores will land on there and will germinate and will contaminate those. The hydrogen peroxide destroys the spores. So any spores that land on this agar will just be instantly destroyed, allowing then the mycelium just to grow and grow and grow across the surface. Sorry? Because mycelium uses hydrogen peroxide as part of its breakdown process. It's one of the enzymes that fungi exude to help break down cellulose and lignin. So because they're familiar with the hydrogen peroxide, they're not used to that concentration that we're using, but they're familiar with it enough to then upcycle the mechanisms that they use to create their own hydrogen peroxide, which makes them able to withstand that concentration. They'll get shocked, but it will survive and will then grow. Okay, so you mix the hydrogen peroxide through, and then we're just going to pour out some, and hopefully it sets. Oh, this could get messy. These are just little sauce containers from Woolies. You don't need a lot in there. And really, you can add as much and as little as you want. But I mean, you could stretch this out across, heaps. There's still quite a lot left in there. And then wait for it to cool. And when it cools, it sets. Well, hopefully this will set. It might just stay liquid. Where am I? This is where a little bit of mushroom kind of taxonomy helps us too. Hang on. So you could use a sharp knife for this, or in my case, I bought some scalpel blades. Scalpel blades are great because it means that the blades come already sterile. And a lot of this stuff you can get from medical supply stores. You can just walk in, you can ask for syringes, you can ask for the needles, you can ask for the blades, the scalpels, surgical scissors, all that stuff. Again, because 10, okay. I lost my train of thought.
Medical supply stores.
Yeah, medical supply stores. So you can get a lot of this stuff from there. You walk in, there, it's easy to obtain. So pharmacies, supermarkets, medical supply stores, pretty much got your bases covered. And hardware stores, Bunnings. You can get a lot of stuff from Bunnings as well. Yep. Yeah, that's where you'd get it. Or perlite. You shop the storage containers, all those things. Yeah. So the final step for this process is to then take some of the mycelium from a mushroom and then add it to the agar. So when you look at the mushroom, you might hand a couple around. Do you want to? Just so you can all see. I'm going to throw mushrooms at somebody. When you look at the mushroom, you can see that the mycelium that forms the mushroom has different forms. You'll see that the stem is one kind of structure. It's very fibrous in nature. It's thick and tough and fibrous. Whereas the mycelium that forms the cap is a little bit more spongy. It's a little bit more foamy in texture. The thing with the stem, because they're long fibers, it means that other fungi kind of can get in there easily and grow through up amongst some of those fibers. You'll have a higher risk of contamination from the stem. So the best part of the mushroom to use is in that spongy area that's in the cap. So I recommend a triangle around about here, like that. So something like that. And that's about, I mean, that's still quite a large chunk comparably. So you can take that chunk and and then you just add it to the agar. This is not set, so, and then that's it. You place the lid on. And then within about a week, you'll see that mycelium growing. Within about 2 weeks, you should be about half myceliated. In about 3 weeks, it should be fully myceliated, and you have your own petri dish of mycelium that you can then go on to the next part of the process if you want to go on to that. So creating liquid cultures, for example, going on to grains. But you could also just then scrape some of that off, place it on a little bit of cardboard and let it grow across the cardboard as well. So, but I recommend giving this technique a go and becoming familiar with that process. Developing the confidence to be able to grow your own mycelium, and then go ahead with the more technical stuff. And maybe next year I can come back and do an intermediate with all of you. Yep, okay. So, look, at this point I'm going to take some questions on the agar technique. And
Can you do an intermediate online course sooner than next year?
yeah, sure. I'm working on that. So I am working on that. You can also Google I did a workshop for the Queensland Mycological Society, and all this techniques are there as well. If
On their website?
yes, yeah, through them. If you YouTube deep enough, you'll find it. Yeah, but no, I would love to be able to offer an online course. So it's a watch this space thing at the moment. In terms of books and things, I know this is quite a good book if you're interested in growing the magic ones. Anything by Paul Stamets is pretty good. Mycelium Running is a really good book. It covers the whole cardboard technique. And then Radical Mycology by Peter McCoy. The Trade Cotter Organic Mushroom Farming book is also excellent if you're interested. Yeah, and I do run other workshops in other places, so if you're in Brisbane, I might be running one there soon, or other places. And I know I do a lot of work with a group called Entheogenesis Australis, and I know that in time they're going to offer some videos as well showing these techniques. Google's your friend. Websites like Shroomery or Mycotopia are also really good. Who else? North Spore cover a lot of this stuff as well. But yes, I appreciate the hands-on stuff is also really valuable. So if you can get yourself to either one of my workshops, which is preferable, or someone else doing something similar, I highly recommend it.
How do we find out about your Brisbane workshop if there's one?
You can, okay, so I have a website, Guerrilla Mycology, GUERRILLA Mycology. So I have a website and an Instagram as well, so I'll post information on those. So, but also other groups. I know there's a few Facebook groups around that I would advertise on. So, because I do a lot of stuff in the psilocybin space, I will advertise like on Psilosophy or PMANZ, P.I.N.P. or even some of the forage and grow groups as well. So, yeah. I think that's pretty much me. Sorry, I kind of ran out of time for the hands-on element, and it was a little bit limited anyway. So I do apologise for that not happening.
Thank you.
Cool.